There is an Umbraco Analytics package that allows you to see the number of active page views and what page your visitors are on. Stick around as I'll show you how to install it in your Umbraco project. On my website is the NuGet package that allows you to do this. In NuGet.org, let's do a search for on my website, and it's this package. If you're using the .NET CLI, cd to your Umbraco project and run .NET space add space package, and then put on my website. And once finished, that has added on my website to your Umbraco project. If you're using the NuGet package manager, you run install -package, and then just put the package name on my website. You can also do it in Visual Studio if you're using Windows. You go to Tools, NuGet Package Manager, and Manage Packages for Solution. Do a search for it on my website. Select the project and install it onto your Umbraco project. We started our Umbraco project. It loads up the home page and it loads this JavaScript file here. In a couple of seconds after that, it then posts an API request with a 204 response. What this does, if we have a look at the payload, is it sends up some details about the page request, such as the path that you're on, a unique reference, what Umbraco node ID you're on, so the ID of the Umbraco page, and also details about the user agent. That API request is reported in Umbraco Backoffice. When we log in, we've got a new dashboard called On My Website. It shows us the number of page views in the last 30 minutes, and it also gives us details about what pages the visitors have been on and what time they've been on it as well. Subscribe for more .NET, C# and ASP.NET Core videos. The great thing about On My Website is it will work in your Umbraco project without any configuration changes. However, you may wish to configure it in a way that suits you. Here's how you do that. All the configuration changes will be made in the Umbraco CMS On My Website app settings. Some of the options we can configure: enabled, if that's set to false, it won't track the page view and you also won't see the dashboard in the back office. We can demonstrate it being disabled, so we set enabled to false. Let's run the project. When the page loads, it doesn't load the JavaScript file and it also doesn't do the API call to track the page view. As well as that, when we log into the back office, the On My Website dashboard no longer appears. Then we've got a couple of options here for when the page loads. So we can set load JavaScript and track page view to false. This might be helpful if we want to manually load the JavaScript in, or we want to manually track the page view, particularly if there's a cookie consent that you need to add before you start tracking page views. Then we've got a couple of options about the page view data that we're capturing. We can capture the user agent, the referrer, and the user. If they're set to false, we won't capture that information. We can also specify any user agents that we don't wish to capture. So we've added a couple of bots on here like Googlebot and Bingbot. So if you don't want to capture them, you can add them into this array list. With the capture user, it adds a cookie to the user's browser. So you might want to think as to whether you want to capture that or not. By default, that is turned off. So if you don't configure it in here, it won't capture it. And finally, we've got a back office configuration section. This just specifies the weight of the dashboard. In back office, the Getting Started dashboard has a weight of 10 and the Redirect URL Management dashboard has a weight of 20. So if we want to appear it to the left or to the right of these, we need to set the weight for the dashboard. We'll demonstrate that by setting the back office dashboard weight. We're going to set it to 3. Restarting the project and loading up the back office dashboard, the On My Website dashboard now appears to the left. If you don't set a configuration value in your app settings, it will use the default value. You can see a list of all the default values by going to roundthecode.com/onmywebsite. You may wish to exclude page view tracking if a page view comes from a certain IP address or if the user has a certain cookie saved on their browser. This is particularly useful if you don't want to capture admin traffic, and you can do that in program.cs. In program.cs, we need to import the namespace, which is onmywebsite.application. Now, in the instance of the web application, we can call app.useOnMyWebsite, and we can pass in options as the parameter. Within options, there's a number of functs which expects the HTTP context and the cancellation token as parameters and returns the type of Boolean in a task. So that means we have access to the HTTP context, and we can also make it async because it returns a type of task. Now one of them is override enabled, so if this is set to false, then it won't enable it for that particular request. So to do this, we can pass in the two parameters of HTTP context and cancellation token. And then within that, what we can do is we can specify that we don't want to receive traffic from a certain IP address. So we can call HTTP context connection, remote IP address to string. And if it equals 1.1.1.1, we're going to return false. Otherwise, we're just going to return true for all other traffic. So in this instance, as long as the IP address doesn't come from this IP address, it will process the page view. Some of the other overrides that you can do include capture referrer, user agent, and when tracking the page view. By default, the website will load the page view properties just before the close-in head tag, and it will load the JavaScript file just before the close-in body tag. If you wish to manually load these into your Umbraco project, you need to follow these steps. First of all, you need to go to the on-page load section and set load JavaScript to false. From there, you need to go into _viewImports.cshtml and you need to add the tag helper. So you call the add tag helper directive *, and on my website. Then in Eraser View, you can add the tag helpers that are needed to track the page view. So first of all, we're going to call on my website -properties. Make sure we got the closing tag there as well. And then we'll call on my website -javascript. This will load the properties and this will load the JavaScript. Make sure that the properties appear above the JavaScript, otherwise it will not track the page view. Running the project, the properties now appear inside the body tag, and just underneath that is the JavaScript file. The page view traffic is added to the dbo.onmywebsite page views table in your Umbraco database. Therefore, you have complete control on how long you keep the data and what you do with it. Deleting records from this table is safe to do and won't have a knock-on effect on how the package works. You may wish to delete older records from this table at regular intervals to prevent it from getting too large. You can find out more about On My Website by going to roundthecode.com/onmywebsite. So that's how you track active page views in your Umbraco project. And the great thing about On My Website is that you can add it to your Umbraco project without any configuration changes. Let me know in the YouTube comments what you think about it and what features you'd like to see in the future.